In the most ancient corners of our minds, buried deep beneath the surface of our day-to-day consciousness, there lies a forgotten truth. Words are powerful entities. They can build bridges, or they can burn them. They can foster understanding, or they can plant the seeds of confusion. They can be the balm that heals, or the blade that wounds. We wield this tool every day, yet we rarely pause to consider the impact of this force we so casually unleash. Imagine for a moment the sheer power of words. The right word, spoken at the right time, can spark a revolution, change the course of a life, or even alter the trajectory of an entire civilization. Yet, the same word, if spoken without thought or care, can cause irreparable harm. It's a paradox that we often overlook, the power of our words versus their potential for damage. There's a fine line between expressing ourselves with authenticity and integrity and allowing our words to run rampant, becoming a destructive force in our lives and the lives of those around us. It's a line that's all too easy to cross when we're caught in the rush of our daily lives, when we're embroiled in the heat of emotion, or when we're lost in the labyrinth of our own thoughts. We've all been there, in those moments of frustration, anger, or confusion, when we lash out, our words cutting deeper than we ever intended. Or in those moments of misunderstanding, when our words become a barrier rather than a bridge, pushing people away instead of drawing them closer. And afterward, we're left with the aftermath, the silence that follows the storm, and we're forced to confront the damage that our words have wrought. It's easy to think that this is just the way things are, that this is the price we pay for our ability to communicate, for our freedom of expression. But what if there was another way? What if there was a tool, just as powerful as our words, that we've been neglecting? So today, I want to share with you a tale about the power of silence, and how it holds the potential to transform our lives on a fundamental level. This is not a fairy tale, nor is it a myth. It is a timeless tale of wisdom, one that has been passed down through generations, a tale that transcends cultures and continents. It's a tale about a king who, despite his wealth, his power, his fame, found himself plagued by a restlessness that he couldn't shake off. A king who, despite having everything he could ever wish for, couldn't find peace. In his desperation, the king approached a monk, a man of wisdom, a man who had renounced the material world to seek inner peace. The monk, after listening to the king's plight, suggested an experiment that would challenge the king's understanding of himself and the world around him. An experiment that revolved around the power of silence. The monk asked the king to live in his monastery for a period of 15 days. During this time, the king would live the life of a monk, spending most of his time in solitude, away from the distractions of his royal court, away from the demands of his kingdom, away from the noise of the world. A daunting task for anyone, let alone a king who was used to being in the center of action, surrounded by people, enveloped by the noise of life. But the king, desperate for peace, agreed. Little did he know that this experience would change his life forever. In the kingdom of words, the king found himself a stranger. The noise, the chatter, the constant barrage of thoughts and voices that had once been his comfort, his shield, now seemed like chains holding him back. And so, with a sense of trepidation, he stepped into the monastery, the realm of silence. The first few days were, to say the least, challenging. The king found himself grappling with an unfamiliar adversary, silence. He was restless, his mind buzzing with a myriad of thoughts and feelings. He missed the hustle and bustle of his kingdom, the noise of his court. He missed the comforting chatter, the sound of his own voice echoed back at him by his followers. In the silence of the monastery, the king was left alone with his thoughts. Thoughts that he had long avoided, thoughts that he had buried deep within the recesses of his mind, thoughts that he had drowned in the noise of his kingdom. Suddenly, these thoughts came rushing to the surface, like a torrent of water breaking through a dam. The king was overwhelmed. His restlessness increased, his mind in a constant state of turmoil. Yet, despite his discomfort, the king persevered. He was a warrior, after all, a king who had faced countless battles, countless challenges. This was just another battle, another challenge. And so, he soldiered on, steadfast in his resolve. Days turned into nights, nights into days. The king, isolated from the world, found himself in a constant state of introspection. He spent hours in silence, sitting under the shade of ancient trees, watching the sun rise and set, listening to the rustle of leaves, the chirping of birds, the whispering of the wind. He began to notice things he had never noticed before. The subtle changes in the sky at dawn and dusk, the intricate patterns of leaves, the calming rhythm of his own breath. What he had initially thought of as a punishment, a curse, slowly began to reveal itself as a blessing. In the silence, the king found a sense of calm that he had never experienced before. He found happiness, not in the noise, not in the chatter, but in the quietude, in the solitude. He found himself developing a deep appreciation for the beauty of nature, the simplicity of life. He began to understand the rhythmic dance of existence, the harmony that existed in the silence. His restlessness, that constant sense of unease that had plagued him, began to fade. Slowly but surely, the king found himself being transformed by the power of silence. The noise, the chatter, the constant barrage of thoughts and voices that he once craved now seemed insignificant, irrelevant. In the silence, he found something much more profound, much more fulfilling: inner peace. In the silence, he found himself. The noise, the chatter, the restless thoughts, they were all just distractions, illusions that had kept him from seeing his true self, his true potential. About 12 days into his stay at the monastery, something extraordinary happened. The king entered a deep meditative state. It was as if he had dived into an ocean of tranquility, into a realm of inner peace that he didn't know existed. He saw his life, his kingdom, his world from a completely different perspective. He realized that his restlessness, his dissatisfaction, his discontent, they were all self-created. They were the result of his excessive talking, his constant need for validation, his incessant negative thinking. In that profound silence, the king discovered a new path, a path of quiet reflection, a path that led to inner peace and a renewed appreciation for life. He discovered the power of silence, the power to transform not just his own life, but the lives of those around him. In that profound silence, the king found his true strength, his true purpose. He realized that he was not just a king, but a human being, capable of experiencing the full spectrum of life, capable of creating his own reality. He discovered the power within him, the power to shape his destiny, the power to shape the world around him. As the profound realization dawned upon the king, he was stunned by the magnitude of his discovery. It was as if a veil had been lifted from his eyes, showing him a world he had hitherto been oblivious to. He understood that his previous restlessness, the discontent that had gnawed at him, was an outcome of his own making. It was his excessive talking, the constant need to be heard and validated, and the negative spiral of thoughts that had created this wall of unease. All along, he himself was the architect of his dissatisfaction. In the silence of the monastery, away from the hustle of his kingdom, the king was given the opportunity to reflect and introspect. He discovered that in the midst of the constant noise and chatter, he had lost touch with his inner self. The incessant need to assert his presence, to make his voice heard, had led him down a road paved with frustration and discontentment. Now, in the quiet and solitude, he was able to peel back the layers of noise, one by one, until he reached his core. He found a profound peace within himself, a sense of calm that he had never experienced before. He realized that it was not the external world, but the inner world that held the key to true peace and happiness. This revelation was not sudden but a gradual process of self-discovery that unfolded over the 12 days of his silent retreat. The king took to this new practice of silence like a fish to water. He began spending hours in deep meditation, reconnecting with his inner self and observing his thoughts without getting swept away by them. In the silence, he found clarity. He found peace. Most importantly, he found himself. He found the essence of who he really was, beyond the royal title and regal robes. He discovered the immense power within him that had been buried under layers of noise and distraction. He learned that he had the power to control his thoughts and actions, to choose peace over restlessness, silence over pointless chatter. He learned that by listening to his inner voice and tuning out the external noise, he could find a wellspring of happiness and contentment within himself. This newfound wisdom was a treasure more valuable than any jewel in his kingdom. He understood that his true strength lay not in his royal status or his wealth, but in his ability to find peace within himself despite the chaos that might surround him. As he emerged from his period of silence and solitude, he was a different person. He was still a king, yes, but he was now a king with a more profound understanding of life and himself. He realized the importance of taking time for silence and reflection in his daily routine, of stepping back from the noise and chaos of the world to connect with his inner self. So profound was the change in him that his subjects could not help but notice. The once restless and dissatisfied king was now a beacon of calm and peace. He was more patient, more understanding, more compassionate. His decisions were no longer impulsive but reflected a deep thoughtfulness. His transformation was not just personal but had a ripple effect throughout his kingdom. His newfound peace and contentment radiated from him like a warm glow, touching everyone he came in contact with. His subjects, inspired by their king, also began to seek the powerful effects of silence and solitude in their own lives. And so, the king, with his newfound understanding of life, became a living testament to the power of silence. His life became a parable for his subjects and the future generations, a parable that taught the importance of silence and solitude in a world that was increasingly getting lost in noise and distraction. He proved that silence was not merely the absence of noise but an enriching experience that led to self-discovery and inner peace. He showcased the transformative power of silence and how it could awaken a strength within that was far more potent than any physical might. His journey from restlessness to peace, from noise to silence, serves as an invaluable lesson to all of us. It reminds us that amidst the cacophony of the world, it is essential to seek stillness, to retreat into the comforting embrace of silence, to tune out the external noise, and to tune in to our inner voice. It is in this silence that we can truly find ourselves, discover our inner strength, and awaken the joy that lies within. Having demonstrated the transformative power of silence through his own experience, the king found himself immersed in a profound discussion with the monk who had initiated him on this path. The monk, who had been a silent observer of the king's journey thus far, chose this moment to share his wisdom on the subject. The monk began by emphasizing a point that was often overlooked. Our words are powerful, capable of creating harmony or discord, joy or sorrow. Used thoughtfully, words can inspire, motivate, and bring about positive change. But when used carelessly, they can cause damage that is often irreparable. Indeed, as the monk pointed out, excessive or ill-timed speech can lead not only to personal distress but also to strained relationships and conflicts. He explained to the king that the act of speaking creates ripples in the world, just like a stone thrown into a pond. Every word spoken, every statement made, has the potential to influence others and the world around us. Therefore, it is not just about how much we speak, but also about what we speak and how we say it. The monk then delved deeper into the subject, elucidating the profound relationship between silence and self-discovery. He explained that silence is not an absence of sound but a state of being, a state of deep introspection and self-awareness. It is in silence that we can truly listen to our inner voice, discover our true self, and tap into our innate wisdom. He shared that silence allows us to create a sacred space within ourselves, a sanctuary where we can retreat from the noise and chaos of the world. It is in this sacred space that we can nourish our souls, rejuvenate our minds, and find the inner peace that eludes us in the hustle and bustle of our daily lives. The monk also highlighted the role of silence in fostering mindfulness. He explained that silence helps us become more present, more attuned to the here and now. It enables us to observe our thoughts, emotions, and experiences without judgment, allowing us to gain deeper insights into ourselves and the world around us. As the monk shared his wisdom, the king found himself nodding in agreement. His own experience in the monastery had validated the monk's words. He had experienced firsthand the tranquility that silence brings. He had found solace in solitude, peace in introspection. He had discovered a joy that he had never known before, a joy that sprang from within and was not dependent on external circumstances. Embracing silence had indeed been a life-changing experience for the king. It had awakened within him a strength he had not known he possessed. It had led him to a profound understanding of himself and the world around him. It had brought him peace, a peace that was not disturbed by the noise and chaos of the outside world. He realized that the power of silence was not something to be taken lightly. It was a powerful tool for transformation, a key to unlocking the door to inner peace and self-discovery. He understood that it was not about suppressing his voice or his thoughts, but about learning to use them wisely, about knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. And with this newfound understanding, the king made a promise to himself. He decided that he would continue to embrace silence in his life, to make it a part of his daily routine. He would strive to use his words wisely, to speak only when necessary, and to let his actions speak louder than his words. He would practice mindfulness, being fully present in the moment, fully aware of his thoughts, feelings, and actions. And he hoped that his subjects, inspired by his transformation, would also learn to appreciate the power of silence, to understand its life-changing potential. He hoped that they too would learn to use their words wisely, to speak with kindness and respect, to listen more and talk less. In this way, the king and the monk hoped to create a culture of silence in the kingdom, a culture that valued introspection, self-awareness, and mindful living. They hoped to create a kingdom where people were not just physically present, but mentally and emotionally present as well. A kingdom where the power of silence was recognized, respected, and cherished. And in doing so, they hoped to create a kingdom that was not just prosperous and powerful, but also peaceful and content. As the days turned into weeks, the king, who had once been consumed by constant frustrations and restlessness, found himself transformed completely. This transformation was born out of silence, a silence that was not just the absence of noise but a profound state of introspective calm. This newfound peace was a testament to the power of silence, one that the king felt compelled to share with his kingdom and the world. In his conversations with the monk, the king came to understand that silence was not just golden. It was a precious resource, a pathway to inner peace, and a catalyst for profound personal transformation. It became clear to him that the frenzied pace and noise of the world often drowned out the quiet whispers of wisdom that echoed within each one of us. He realized that by nurturing silence, he was not denying the world around him, but simply creating space within, a space where his thoughts could breathe freely, where his mind could wander without judgment, where he could find refuge from the world's chaos and tune into the quiet symphony of his inner self. Throughout his journey, the king discovered that silence was not an act of isolation or withdrawal from the world. Instead, it was an intimate dance with his own consciousness, an exploration of the vast landscapes of his inner being. The quiet solitude allowed him to experience the joy of his own company, to reconnect with himself at a deeper level, and to unearth treasures of wisdom that lay hidden beneath the surface of his consciousness. In the stillness, he found not loneliness, but a sense of belonging. Belonging to the moment, to nature, to the universe, and most importantly, to himself. He discovered that silence was a bridge that connected him to his true self, to others, and to the world around him. And with each passing day, the bridge became stronger, the connections deeper. This journey into silence helped the king realize his true potential. He discovered that he was more than just a king. He was a seeker, a learner, a wanderer, and an observer. He understood that his power did not lie in his crown or his kingdom, but in his silence, in his ability to listen, to understand, to reflect, and to respond with wisdom and compassion. The monk, throughout this process, had been the king's silent guide. He was the lighthouse that guided the king through the turbulent seas of his mind, leading him to the calm shores of silence. He reminded the king that every individual had the power to turn their life around, to find peace and contentment within themselves, and to contribute positively to the world around them. In their final conversation, the monk shared a profound piece of wisdom with the king about the importance of silence. He said, "Silence is not just a state of being, it's a way of living. It's not about denying the world, but about understanding it. It's not about isolation, but about connection. It's about finding your own rhythm amid the noise, about aligning your thoughts, words, and actions with your true self. And most importantly, it's about realizing that the answers you seek are not out there, but within you." The king listened, absorbed, and imbibed these words. He promised to carry these lessons with him and to share them with his kingdom and the world. He understood that silence was not just a personal journey but a collective one. It was a journey that could bring individuals closer to themselves, closer to each other, and closer to a world of peace, harmony, and understanding. In essence, the king's journey into silence was not just about him, it was about all of us. It was a reminder that each one of us has the power to transform our lives, to find peace within ourselves, and to make a difference in the world. All it takes is the courage to embrace silence, to listen to our inner voice, and to follow our heart. I hope that this tale of the king and his journey into silence resonates with you. I hope it inspires you to explore the power of silence in your own life, to discover your true self, and to live a life of peace, joy, and fulfillment. If you found value in this message, I invite you to share it with others. Let's spread the power of silence. Let's spread the joy of self-discovery. And let's create a world where each one of us can live our best life. Remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Your support helps us create more content like this, content that can inspire and empower individuals all around the world. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, silence is golden. Let's cherish it. Let's nurture it. And let's let it guide us on our journey of self-discovery.